Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining our webinar today. My name is Dhruv Singhal, and I'm the founder of Open Years, as well as a rising senior at Neuqua Valley High School in Aurora, Illinois. And it's fantastic to see that so many of you guys are interested in listening to the speaker today. And once again, I hope that you take advantage of this event to learn more about an exciting field in data science and sports analytics and statistics. Figuring out what I wanted to do in the future was a problem for me personally, and by continuing this Open Gears initiative, I hope to alleviate your problems and doubts as well by providing you with an array of unique experiences from our community. With that said, I also encourage you to check out our library of recorded webinars on YouTube to gain a unique insight into other areas as well. And the link to our YouTube channel, it can be found on our website, theopengears.com. Now, I would like to welcome our speaker today, Aditya Fuldeore. Aditya is a Neuqua Valley graduate currently majoring in statistics at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign while minoring in informatics and journalism. He has written sports analytics articles for websites such as playerprofiler.com and frontofficegurus.com, while also providing statistical analysis for the Illinois women's basketball team as he moves forward into the data science field. Before we start this webinar, I want to remind you again to please do not hesitate to ask any questions throughout the webinar, whether you decide to unmute or write them in the chat. Again, thank you so much, Aditya, for taking time out of your busy schedule to help inspire students to pursue your STEM career. And without further ado, please give him your undivided attention and a warm virtual round of applause. Thank you so much, Aditya, for this opportunity to talk with you.
Of course, thanks for this opportunity, Drew. Just share my presentation here. So my name is Aditya Fuldeore, and I am going to talk to you about statistics and sports analytics today. So first, a little bit about me. Like Drew said, I'm a Neuqua Valley High School graduate. After that, I went to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where currently, I just finished my junior year and I will be a senior in the fall. And a couple jobs that I do now. One is I'm a data analyst for the Illinois women's basketball team. So that involves play data collection and analysis, which I'll get into a little bit later. And something else I'm doing, I'm writing articles for a fantasy football company called Roto Underworld, more specifically their website called playerprofiler.com. So this involves writing analytical articles related to fantasy football and sort of what strategies you can use and what players might be great for that season. So first, to get into it, I'll talk a little bit about my high school experiences and how you may also perceive these experiences and how you may be able to take these experiences for your high school path as you go into college. So something that I did in high school was I took some computing classes, some coding classes, and that was because that was my interest in high school. Your interest may be different, but that's something that I found interesting throughout high school, and I took those classes to further what my interests were and what I thought I would want to do in the future. I also took sort of the basic math path that some of you might be taking throughout high school: geometry, algebra, pre-calculus, along with some AP classes that you may hear about that you can take the tests, the AP tests for, and those will help get you credit for your college wherever you may be going. Some other personal interests of mine that I had, and they don't really relate to statistics that much, but physics and German I took a lot of and I was interested in, and that sort of helped grow my learning process. So once I get to college, I got to learn more about my interests and where they lie. And throughout taking physics and German in high school, I learned a lot about how to start learning something new from the ground up. Something else that I did was do some basic software learning before college. You don't necessarily have to do this, but between my senior year of high school after I graduated and my freshman year of college, I took some online classes, some tutorials on basic software in the statistics field, and I'll get into a little bit more about what software specifically that statistics uses. But I looked a couple months that summer before starting college just so that I could grow my interest in the statistics field and I knew what to expect. And another thing that just as a piece of advice is use extracurriculars and electives for your interest in high school. So you don't necessarily need to know what you want to do. Don't worry if you don't have a plan yet. Always pursue what you're interested in high school, and college is when you'll get there and sort of figure out what you're going to do for your career. But make sure that you take the time to do what you really enjoy doing and recognize what you want to do.
So by the computing classes that you took, did you take like AP Computer Science and all?
Not even, yeah, not even like an AP class in computer science. Neuqua offered some basic coding classes.
Uh-huh.
So these were like part of the high school curriculum, but they weren't necessarily an AP class because I personally didn't know that I wanted to do statistics and data analytics while I was in high school, but I just knew I wanted something to do with
I see.
working on coding or working with data. So I decided to take that sort of foundation groundwork and work up from there.
Mhm. Did you take like an AP Stats class or any type of statistics class before?
No, I didn't even take a statistics class in high school. I just took some basic math, and when I was applying to colleges, that's when I knew I was sort of, oh, maybe statistics is somewhere to go. And once I talk about my college experience, I'll get into sort of that process a little bit more. But like it goes to show, like you don't necessarily have to be doing what you're going to do in college. It's high school is more knowing what you like and knowing what you want to learn in the future.
I see. That's interesting.
Right, and now some more about my college experience. I'm at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where I'm pursuing a Bachelor's of Science in Statistics, and I'm minoring in journalism and informatics. So the journalism part, I'll address first. I'm minoring in journalism because, as Drew mentioned earlier, I'm writing articles for a couple different places. So I figured journalism might be a great place to dip my toes into and get sort of the report writing part of statistics down, because in statistics you not only want to work with the data, but you want to get it in a way where the people you're presenting to understand what you're talking about and what you want them to get from it. Informatics, another thing I'm minoring in, is sort of like computer science, but it's less intense and more broad. So you would learn coding in it, but you would also learn some more stuff about circuits that you might not learn in computer science, but you also won't go as intense and deep into computer science as you would in informatics, or you won't go as deep into computer science in informatics as you would in computer science. I'm also involved in sports and statistics clubs at the University of Illinois. So this involves the statistics club at U of I, which sort of brings in companies to talk about the statistics field and what jobs that they might have open, so that students in this club can send their resumes out to these companies and apply and be involved in this job making process. Sports clubs are more special interest clubs. One club I'm in is Sports Business Association. So we get speakers there to talk to us about sports and the business side of it and the marketing side of it and everything that's involved with promoting a brand of a specific team or specific player. Sports Analytics Society is another club that I'm in, which is more using the data and sort of learning more about what data is out there for people wanting to go into sports analytics to work with, and also learning about opportunities in that career field. Independent projects I also do. They aren't really related to the university exactly, but throughout college, I've sort of learned you're going to learn things throughout your classes, but you're also going to want to do some things outside of classes if you want to pursue a sort of niche career field. So I want to pursue sports analytics. So I've been doing sort of independent projects where I maybe make some data visuals or graphs showing different players in basketball or football and posting these on LinkedIn or social media and saying this is what I can do, and then hoping that people can take notice of this. And I also learned different softwares. Like I mentioned, right after high school, I learned some softwares, but throughout college, throughout your classes, you'll learn different softwares that the professors will teach. And these will help towards either potential graduate school courses or towards the career field that you want to go to. And I put this on here, like use your professors, advisors, and career counselors for help. And that's sort of going back to like, I didn't really know that I wanted to apply to statistics specifically until basically I started applying for colleges. Like I mentioned, I didn't take any sort of AP statistics or AP computer science. So this was more, I knew that I really like sports and I really liked the numbers behind sports. So as I was applying, I applied to statistics. And when I got to the University of Illinois after getting accepted, I talked to my career counselors and advisors, and they gave me a whole list of careers in statistics, and also they were very willing to help me find people that I could talk to in sports analytics specifically, because I mentioned that I was really interested in the sports side of things. So don't be afraid to talk to your professors, advisors, and career counselors. They always want to help, and you'll be surprised because not a lot of students go to them for help. So if you go to them for help, you'll be maybe 1 out of 15 to 20 kids that are going to them bi-weekly or a couple times a month. So you'll really be able to gain sort of a groundwork for that.
So throughout your college experiences, what was your most favorite class that you've taken so far? And then on the other hand, what was like one of the most challenging classes you've taken?
Yeah, one of my favorite classes I've taken was sports journalism. So that combined the sports side of things and journalism side of things. We in that class we learned about sports writers in the past that sort of shaped the field of how sports is covered today. And it also helped me figure out how to research sports in a more in a way where you're gaining notoriety, so that you're not taking like shortcuts to find something. You're always cite your sources, get a good source to talk on the record, that sort of thing. So I really learned a lot about how sports media is produced and how I can work forward in gaining that sort of notoriety in the sports field. One of my most challenging classes I took my freshman year was a computer science class. In that class, we learned Java and how to code in Java, and we had a machine learning project that we kept adding to throughout the semester. So that was one of my most challenging classes because it took me a long time to figure out how to code in it and how to um, make the code work specifically, because coding isn't just you just type a few lines and it works. It's you have to keep working at it, make it better, and it's not going to work because there's like you're missing a period somewhere, so you have to go back through your entire code and find that missing period and put it in there. So that was definitely one of my most difficult classes that I've taken, but it also helped me learn a lot about the coding part of things and how to keep learning as you're going along in your career.
That's
And oh, so, oh, so in my career and field of study that I'm going to talk about a little bit now is one thing is statistics isn't just the numbers, it's about data and its qualities and the concepts of probabilities, distributions. There's a lot of rules and a lot of different things that you can carry throughout learning statistics. And data analytics falls under this statistics umbrella where you're using numbers and probabilities to reach a sort of different conclusions. So more specifically, like what is data analytics? It's using tools to extract and filter data. And what I mean by that is you're not always going to have the data given to you. A lot of times, maybe whatever company or whatever competition you've entered into, they'll give you the data that you need to extract and filters things from. But you might also have to go out there and find your own data. So a lot of that process is identifying what you need to what questions you need to answer and what data might help you get there. Another thing is analyzing data to assess its quality and meaning. So you identify trends and patterns that could be helpful in answering the question that you're looking for in this data analysis, because you always start with a question and then you go and look for the data, and then you look at this data to identify the trends and patterns that answer this question that you want answered. And a big part of it that a lot of people don't really talk about is the preparation of reports when you're talking to supervisors, bosses, or even shareholders at a certain company, because you want to put it in a way, like I mentioned earlier, to and put it in a way that makes sense for people to understand, because sometimes the people that you're talking to aren't also going to be data analytics people. There'll be maybe customers that don't really know statistics. There'll be maybe the CEO at your company has a business background, but not like a statistics background. So it's really about putting it into terms where they'll know what you're talking about. And the specific application to sports and sports analytics, which is where I have the most experience in, is predicting player production from tendencies is one thing that you might be doing a lot. So say for basketball, there's a player that's shooting a lot of 3-point shots, but he's not making a lot of them. Well, you can predict from this that if he continues to shoot a lot of 3-point shots, he'll probably make some of them and he'll score more than someone who's taking a lot of 2-point shots but isn't making a lot of them. So it's really predicting how something might do in the future based on what is currently happening now or in the past. And you can also analyze team production from this and answer questions like, is this production sustainable, or which players might regress positively or negatively? So in certain aspects of football or basketball, there's statistics where people will say, oh, this player was expected to run for this many yards in football, but he only ran for like 3 yards when he was expected to run for 5. If that player keeps doing that, where he's expected to run for 5, but he runs for 3, then eventually he'll regress positively, where he'll start running for 5 or 6 yards, where that average will sort of move up because he's expected to run for more. So that's all. That sounds a little bit complicated, but it's a lot when you break it down to taking away sort of the terminology and the numbers. It just comes down to predicting how a team or player, someone in sports might do based on how they've done in the past.
So how is data analytics different from data science? I know they're like two exciting fields that are emerging. So like, is there any difference between the two?
So they're used interchangeably a lot. It really depends on what you're trying to communicate. So like, for example, sports analytics, it makes more sense to put that under data analytics because you're analyzing different players and different tendencies, versus data science. You can put sports analytics in there, but you're not going to be going as in depth into the software side of things, where you're maybe creating an app to figure out something to do for this player. You're really just analyzing the production that you're doing for them, but they are used interchangeably a lot, and there are a lot of overlapping parts. So when it comes down to data science versus data analytics, you can say, I want to go into the data science field and then figure out, oh, I want to look more on the analyzing statistics side than the software programming side. Then it comes down to analytics versus software, but they can really be used interchangeably most of the time.
Gotcha.
Any other questions from anyone.
So like those sports clubs, those sports analytics clubs that you joined in UIUC, were they open to anyone of any background?
Yeah, so just most clubs at colleges, they'll be open to anyone of any background. So even if you're of a different major, but you have an interest in this, then you can go and join it. Like the Sports Business Association club that I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of sport recreation and tourism majors because that's a major at U of I where even the faculty member that's mainly used as the person that brings in a lot of speakers to talk to us. He's a sport recreation and tourism professor, but people from engineering or statistics or from any business side of things come into the club to find out because they all have similar interest in this. So really anyone from any background can join.
That's good. Someone asked if the statistics major is part of the Granger School of Engineering or is it in the liberal arts?
It's in liberal arts and sciences. So like statistics and math are part of liberal arts and sciences, and the Granger School of Engineering is basically just majors that have engineering on the end of them. I think there's a couple where they're they aren't necessarily like labeled engineering, but they're part of the Granger School of Engineering. But
Like computer
yeah,
science.
statistics and math are liberal arts and sciences.
Hmm. Thank you.
Um, so a little bit more about my journey and how it may be able to help your journey if you're trying to go into statistics. So I first started writing sports articles for a website called Front Office Gurus, which was started by another college student at the University of Illinois. And it was essentially a group of us college students where we were creating some content. We were researching data and writing and producing different articles and content. And we were also using Twitter and LinkedIn to sort of market ourselves to the public. And the my friend who started the website, he graduated this year, but he was able to use what he did with this site to launch a job in sports journalism and covering basketball players, like high school basketball players, and how they'll be recruited to college and how highly they should be recruited for the NBA. So it's basically we were these college students, we weren't getting paid for this or anything, creating our own stuff on a website on WordPress, which you may have heard is used a lot for creating websites. But if you're trying to get into a certain type of field, um, you can always try to create your own stuff where you may not be getting paid, but it will show other companies like this is the work that you are doing, and then companies will be like, okay, come in for an interview, or we really like your stuff. What would you think of doing this for us? And a lot of companies in sports are sort of part-time or paid by the article. So you might write a certain article and they'll pay you 15 or $20 for it. And this is because like sports in general is hard to get into and sports media is hard to get into, but a lot of smaller sports media, sports data companies, they have they have sort of a CEO or executive board of directors that run the company that work full time and make money, but the rest of the employees are part time or not making a lot of money because they have other full time jobs. So you may find that creating your own website might be a good way to get started and to show what you can do to people or show what you can do for people. Um, and something that Front Office Gurus helped me with was get a job with Tracking Football, which is a website which helps give data to college teams. So college teams like Wisconsin or Michigan, these college football teams will come to this website and buy a membership package from them and be able to get different data about high school recruits and how fast they run and how well they performed in track and field or different sports. So this was more of a behind the scenes data job for me, where I did a lot of research and inputted things into Microsoft Excel rather than where I'm producing content, posting this on Twitter and LinkedIn like I did for Front Office Gurus. And a main point I would say is use LinkedIn a lot. There's a lot of people out there who are looking for young people in the field to sort of get under their wing and get involved in their companies. So use LinkedIn to post what you can do.
So like how did you go about starting different independent projects? Cuz I know like it may seem a little daunting to get started at first. So like how did you get started in that?
Yeah, so I started with independent projects with learning, taking some tutorials online. There's a lot of free tutorials out there, or you can just Google different discount codes for different software sites and they'll give you free tutorials for whatever software you might want to use. So I did a lot of that. And then I researched what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to do sports. So I researched sports data and I looked at the code that was happening in the tutorials and I sort of said, oh, okay, I can do this for the sports data, and then inputted the sports data and it spit out different graphs that I'll show a little bit later in the presentation. Like these are the sort of graphs that I was able to come up with and post out on LinkedIn or Twitter and sort of be like, this is what I can do. These are some cool visuals and things like that.
Awesome. Awesome.
Right. Yes, so this sort of springboard into what I'm doing now in the career, which is, like I mentioned, I'm writing for Player Profiler, which is I use a database that they have to research and draw conclusions on a question that I might enter. So if this is something where you want to write articles in sports or write articles anywhere really, you want to find a topic of debate or a topic that's of discourse in the world or the field that you're writing for first, research that topic and then show a conclusion based on that research. So it's really a three-step process of finding a topic, researching that topic, and answering that question with the data that you have. And for Player Profile, I write these articles that I also post on Twitter, and it's a lot of Twitter marketing. And Twitter is a big resource for sports writers in general, because like I mentioned earlier, a lot of sports writers don't work full time. They might work part time in the lower sports media companies. So Twitter is a huge thing that you could explore to market your work. And like I also mentioned, I'm working with the women's basketball team's analytics. This is also behind the scenes, which is I'm not really able to post a lot of what I do because it's confidential plays that's used by the coaches. So it's a lot of discussion of what coaches want to see. And if you can see that plot on the right there, which has success rate and total points scored, I sort of used sample data to show you what a plot for the women's data analytics might look like and something that I might be doing for them. So a lot of this would involve working with the coaches and figuring out what exactly you want to show them. And actually this past year was our first year having a data analytics team for the women's basketball team. So it was a lot of figuring out where we fit in the process and what we might be able to provide coaches. So there's a lot of figuring out questions to answer and then giving that data to the coaches. And one last thing that I recently did was the Big Data Bowl, which is an NFL data competition that they hold every year in the winter. I believe January is every year when the results of the competition are due. But the NFL gives people participating a topic to create a sort of statistic or to analyze for. And people can participate in this competition and come up with different cool statistics that may be used in the future for the NFL. And in the past, people that win this competition go on to get job offers from NFL teams or different people in the sports statistics arena. So that's another big thing that if you're looking to sort of dip your toes into sports analytics, this Big Data Bowl competitions, definitely check that out and see how that might help you move forward.
So, how did you get the position on the Illinois women's basketball analytics team? Was that something that you apply for?
Because it was the first year, that was something where there was a group of us that figured like, hey, the women's team doesn't have any data analytics, and my friend who started the data analytics team, he had worked for them as a manager in the previous year. So he said this is sort of where they don't really have data analytics or a team doing that, so we should start our own. And then we went to the coaches and they said, oh yeah, we'd love to have you on. And then we started working with them further and further, and hopefully in this next winter we'll be able to work more in depth and get it more going than we did last year, because last year was sort of the inaugural year. So I guess sort of the lesson from that is if you're looking to contribute somewhere at your college, just look at places where maybe data analytics isn't done. If that's the path you're trying to go, maybe look at that arena and then go to those people and say, hey, you don't really have this. We can contribute this. What do you say? And more often than not, people will be accommodating, or at least even if they say no, they'll have you in the back of your mind, have you in the back of their mind for anything future to refer you to.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So, other sports teams at UIUC have analytics departments, like the football team, men's basketball.
Yeah, I know the football team has a video department, so they sort of use that as their analysis for football film and all that. The men's team, I believe they have some sort of, it's a lot more tight-lipped because, well, first the men's team was ranked in the past like 3 years, so there's a lot of media going around that, and there's a lot of managers that apply to be with the team. So the managers will sort of help out with taking notes during practice or taking down stats or really anything that the coaches want. So um, the football team and the men's basketball team are definitely like up there in terms of funding, or even if you like reach out to someone, you may not get an email back. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try, always try, but we found that um, places like the women's basketball team that aren't given as much attention by the media are often more willing to get back to you and work with you.
Right. Yeah. Agreed.
Are there any other questions in the chat or anything?
Doesn't look like it for now. I
All
think it
right.
should pop in soon. Yep.
Okay. So with the moving forward with the skills that you may be looking to use in data analytics, some of the hard skills that you'll have to use, and this is the software side, like I was talking about earlier, R, Python, SQL, Tableau, and SAS are 5 different softwares that I've personally worked with from the start of college till now in the last just 3 years. Um, R and Python were 2 softwares that I decided to learn before coming to college that summer, the couple months before. R was mainly the one that I used because it is used a lot in when you analyze databases in statistics, and it's very easy to use, and you can create a lot of cool visuals using it. Python, you've probably heard of, is very diverse and you can do a lot of different things with it. It is a little bit harder, in my opinion, to use than R for data analysis and data visuals, but it's also a lot more well known and a lot more diverse. Um, SQL, Tableau, and SAS are a lot more niche. SAS is a lot older. Um, I had to learn that for a class this past semester, but it's not really used that much anymore in the career field, so you may not have to worry about that. Tableau is a really interesting data visual software. It's not one where you have to do any data analysis or anything. Basically, if you have a Microsoft Excel document, you upload that into Tableau, and then it has drag and drop functionality. You can just drag like a column name over, and it creates the graph for you, so you don't really have to do a whole lot of work there. And SQL is more database stuff. It is a little bit harder than R. You don't really do any data visualization in it, but it's more used to sort through databases. So that's just the gist of the software. You'll probably use R and Python the most if you're going into statistics, but that's basically what you might expect. GitHub, you may have heard of, is used to share code within teams, or if you're working with a partner, you can upload your code to GitHub and share your GitHub code with your partner, and they'll be able to download that code and add to it. So it's just something useful for getting your code out into the public. Some of the soft skills, like I mentioned earlier, you'd be presenting a lot of reports and organizing a lot of visual layouts, putting into layman's terms for supervisors and customers, because it's always nice to look at pretty graphs. So if you can put anything that you analyze into a really nice looking graph, that's a huge bonus because it looks great, and then your supervisor's happy looking at that, and then you have the data that you need in it too. So it's a lot of visual layouts. And that's pretty much it for the skills.
So you
So I
mainly,
wanted to, oh,
sorry,
go ahead.
you mainly use R and Python, right?
Yeah, I personally use a lot more R than Python for my independent projects,
Oh,
where I just make a graph and post it, but Python is used a lot, and SQL is actually used a lot in data analytics, but it's also one where if you've learned R and Python first, it'll be a little bit easier to learn after those too. So I definitely advise anyone that wants to go into statistics or data analytics to take a look at R and Python first.
yeah, and just out of curiosity, because I also like learned R over the past summer. So did you use like the ggplot libraries for your
Hmm.
visualizations?
Yeah, ggplot is used a lot for making those visuals. So like even if it seems very basic, it's used everywhere. So just practicing on that is a great way to get started.
All right.
So a little bit on what you can do to get started in the field. So like I said earlier, research what you like. So I was interested in sports, so I research sports. If you're interested in something else like business or stocks or anything else, then research data on that, and use this data when you're doing tutorials on those hard skills. So W3 Schools and Udemy are two really big tutorial areas. W3 Schools has most of its tutorials for free out there on Google. Udemy has it's a lot of paid courses, but they have a lot of deals and discounts, or like monthly deals. So you can always be on the lookout for those, and you might be able to get a tutorial for free or something on there. And that was really helpful in helping me learn R at least. Um, I'd also advise like create something of a portfolio that you might have. So what I did was I had a Google Doc where I had links to different work that I did, and I would send this Google Doc out to different people whenever I'd try and be like, hey, do you have an opening here? Or I can help out here. Here's my portfolio. And this had links to different research and work that I did. So it's always a good way to get your name out there and show what you can do. And another thing, marketing yourself on media and networking. So Twitter, like I mentioned, is huge. networking on LinkedIn as well. And Handshake is also you might not use now, but in college, um, you might be able to get a free Handshake account from your college where it's a lot of job opportunities posted on Handshake, so you'll be able to go through all those job opportunities and click maybe things that you might like to apply for. And recruiters also message you on that website, so it's a lot of networking through those opportunities.
So, in order to learn R, Python, and all these skills, did you use W3 and Udemy yourself?
Yeah, I used a lot of Udemy myself. W3 I used more for Python and SQL, but really anything you can find out there, there's a lot of different websites.
I see. Yeah. And we actually had like two questions in the chat. So, first question is like, how much programming is taught in your major?
In my major in particular, so statistics, there's also another major called statistics and computer science. So I'm just statistics, so I learn a lot of um, coding in R and in mostly R, and I did learn SAS this past semester, but it's less hardcore coding that you might expect from computer science. It's more um, data. You go into a database and you pick out certain things from that database or analyze it or put it into a graph versus if you went into the statistics and computer science major, that will be a lot more working with maybe Python or Java, where you'll be going into the machine learning aspect of it a lot more. So within my personal major, statistics, it's a lot more easier on the coding. But if you add on that computer science component to it, you'll learn a lot more.
Nice. And like just to build off that, can you give a general overview of the courses that you've taken over the past 3 years?
Yeah, so I started my freshman year taking a couple of basic concept statistics courses. So everybody's required to take like basic stat 100, stat 200 classes. So these classes that have designations that are 100 or 200, you'll learn more conceptually about probabilities, and you'll learn about the different rules involved in statistics and different formulas involved in statistics. And then as I got to my junior year and going into my senior year next year, I'll be learning a lot more of coding in statistics. So it's instead of having to write out a formula to calculate the answer, you just type it up in your code and get the answer instead. But you also learn a lot more high level of um, coding and coding specifically, but you also need the base conceptual part that you learn your freshman and sophomore year. And my freshman year, there was a lot of math learning involved as well. There's a calculus curriculum that you have to complete. I came into U of I with some AP credits and math credit already, so I was able to complete that calculus curriculum within my freshman year. But in that calculus curriculum, you'll take two calculus classes and a linear algebra class, and um, there's also different math classes you could take if you don't want to take linear algebra. The major requirements are always changing in every 2 or 3 years, but if you take statistics, you can definitely expect to start off more conceptual, more math based, and then as you get towards the end, it'll be more coding.
So by far, like the majority of your classes have been related to statistics, right?
Yes.
All right.
And statistics as a major, at least at Illinois, isn't a lot of courses. So that's why I added on two more minors. But a lot of people taking statistics might graduate in 3 or 3.5 years. So it's really not that much. You definitely have room to take classes that are geared towards other outside interests or anything that you might want to take outside of statistics.
Yeah, because you also minored in journalism informatics too. Would you be willing to
Mhm.
share a little bit more about those types of classes as well?
Yeah, so I just started the bulk of my journalism minor this last semester. So
Mm.
that was, like I mentioned, the sports journalism class I took. You start off learning in the lower level journalism classes what sort of rules you have to take when you're doing journalism, like when you want to go question someone, there's certain rules or certain etiquette when you're trying to do that. And you'll also learn about the history of journalism, like what's been good in journalism, what hasn't been good in journalism. And then as you get further in the curriculum, you'll learn more specifics about um, like what what you want to look for when you cover journalism, what language you want to use, so that you're not potentially putting out like a dangerous headline or something like that. So there is a little bit more like of a political spin to it too, because you have to learn um, how to cover different things in journalism. But for me, since I'm going into sports journalism, I um, I can elect to take different classes that are centered around sports journalism. So sports journalism wasn't a required class for journalism, but I chose to take it because I wanted to take sports. So just like that, if you have an interest in something else like science, you can take a science journalism class. There's law journalism classes as well. Informatics is one where you have to take a computer science class. So that's the one I mentioned was one of my more difficult classes. I took that class, and then as you get further in throughout the curriculum, you can, um, since it's only a minor, you have a lot of electives that you can choose from. So another class I took was a business visualization class where you research different topics and you create a presentation that you then present as a final project and as you're presenting to a company based on this topic. So there's a lot of different things you can do within that informatics minor, as long as you have the base of you're taking a computer science class and you take a circuits class.
All right, yeah, that's cool. Thank you so much for those explanations.
And I just wanted to touch on some maybe cool stat careers here. So if you're interested in finance and stocks, then like if you're interested in learning about how to make profits, how to make sales, or what shareholder values mean, or anything of that sort, there's a lot of different things in the stock market that you can analyze, and there's a lot of companies that hire investment anal investment analysts like Goldman Sachs or Fidelity Investments or even Facebook. So they will look for financial analysts that will try and increase those profits and sales in finance. So that's one or two careers that you could go into. Um, a couple other careers, pharmaceuticals. There's a huge market for data analysts in pharmaceuticals. Um, U of I's had career fairs in statistics, and even if you don't go to U of I, your college will probably also have career fairs in whatever field you're in. So at these career fairs, it's pharmaceuticals and insurance companies that come out the most. And like a company like Bayer, where they make the aspirin, they will hire people to test data on different treatments. So you'll be analyzing a lot of data in their testing trials to see what works and what doesn't. You'll also be analyzing data on maybe on the sales side on what's been working the most, what do people need the most out of these pharmaceuticals. Insurance is a huge one where actuarial sciences is a whole different component of statistics. You can take an actuarial science exam to sort of be certified in that insurance field. State Farm has a whole research park, or there's a whole research park at Illinois. State Farm has a whole section carved out at that research park at the University of Illinois where they'll hire a lot of students to come in and do a lot of research on policy effectiveness, risk assessment, other demographics to target, and insurance stuff in general. So a lot of Illinois statistics or statistics and computer science students go there or find that they will work at State Farm at some point. So that's a huge resource in terms of insurance analysis there. Um,
As part of like your classes that you've taken at UAUC, have you had the opportunity to explore these different areas in the stats realm?
yeah. So within the classes, there isn't a whole lot that you might explore because the professors will give you their own data sets. So there might be sports data sets, there might be insurance, there might be crime statistics. But in terms of exploring, there's different interest clubs. Like there's an actuarial science club at U of I, so you learn more about taking that exam, careers in that field, and insurance. And there are, like I said, the job fairs that come to U of I. A lot of people from these careers come there, so you'll be able to talk to these people and get sort of an idea of what they might be looking for. And like I mentioned, State Farm is a huge one for the University of Illinois. Like the basketball stadium is called the State Farm Center. So it's got a huge presence on campus. So definitely if you're looking to get into actuarial sciences, the University of Illinois has a huge presence there.
Wow, that's great to know.
And then more stat careers. So marketing is a huge one. You look into sales demographics, advertising, brand promotion. There's a lot of analysis to do with where like say certain people ages 18 to 24 aren't looking at your product, but people 50 and up are. So you'll target more that 50 and up crowd than the 18 to 24 crowd. So that's sort of analysis you'll be doing. And then sports, of course, there's a lot of plots, modeling, predictions. This plot I have here on the right is a small one, sort of where I was able to analyze the NBA rookies from this season. And I was also able to get their player heads and import those into R and create a plot from those. So while it may not look like a whole lot, there's some information you can take from both the X and Y axis, some basketball statistics there. And these stat careers are pretty much in anything you want. So statistics, data analytics can be in a lot of different arenas. And sports analytics in particular is uh, you want to do a lot of um, advertising yourself, doing these plots and modeling and predictions. And like on this next slide, like I have a couple of the different plots that I've made over the past year or two, and these didn't just happen like overnight. This is like looking at tutorials. A bunch of huge tutorials can help you figure out just how to move forward into your next step. It's sports tutorials, sports analytics tutorials. There are some that exist out there, but for basic software usage, you might just want to look at normal tutorials and then just insert your sports data in there. At the bottom, I have an Excel sheet of what you might do in sports analytics. So this Excel sheet I used for Front Office Gurus last year. This was a lot of doing my own research and gathering statistics from different websites. It was mainly one website called Basketball Reference. So it was organizing these statistics into an Excel sheet. And then like you can see, if you can see here, this 3-point percentage column has a green to red spectrum. So you can do different things in Excel where you just drag and drop something and then it'll analyze this whole column for you. So researching and then gathering your own data is a huge part of what you want to do in sports analytics. And that's sort of how I started out. And if you want to do the same, that's what I would suggest.
Wow. Can you talk about a little bit of these graphs that you have? They look really cool.
Yeah, so this one on the top left, this was 2020 NFL football statistics. So it shows on the x-axis, it shows how often a football team will run the ball instead of passing it on first down. And the y-axis shows how many times the team that runs the ball on first down will get another first down. So they'll gain all 10 yards to get another first down. So it was sort of a question of where I wanted to see how often do teams run the ball instead of pass it on first down, and how often do these teams get another first down after doing that. So like from this graph, you can see the Cleveland Browns, the Tennessee Titans, the Ravens, they were all really good at running the ball and they did it often. The Titans were around average, like this line shows where you should be. So the Ravens and the Browns were the most effective in running the ball on first down. And then you can see the Bills were they didn't do it often. The Falcons weren't that good. The Dolphins and Cowboys weren't that good either. And then on this right-hand graph I have was before the NBA draft, where using this Excel sheet, I wanted to show how point guards in the NBA draft performed in their passing abilities. So point guards that are, or players that are further to the left of the graph, it means that they turn over the ball a lot more than the other players. If they're further to the right, they turn the ball over less. And if they're at the top, that means they assist on a lot of plays. So they pass the ball to a lot of shooters, or they make points happen. So players that are on this top right-hand side of the graph, they're really good point guards. Players that are further down here, which there aren't a whole lot, but they're probably not best equipped to be point guards in the NBA. But there's a whole lot that goes into analyzing that. Like just one graph won't show like an end all be all. There's a bunch of different statistics like I showed in this Excel document that show how good a player is. So it's not, when you're making graphs, it's not just one plot, it's looking at something holistically.
Wow, that's cool. So you just find those data sets online to make these?
Yeah, so like I said, there's a website called Basketball Reference, and
Okay.
there's a college basketball version of that website. So I just went on there and got all this data from that website. And there's a couple other websites which I don't remember off the top of my head right now, but they sort of help fill in the blanks for other statistics that you might need. Or for example, international players like this player, he's the Australian flag next to him, he's from Australia, so the Basketball Reference website won't have statistics on him, but some other website might. So as long as you're using the same statistic and making sure you're using the same statistic for all the players, you can use different data sources and make sure that you cite those sources wherever you're writing something up.
Right. Got you. Wow. Well, that's really fascinating, especially because I'm a diehard Chicago Bears and Bulls fan myself. And, the field of data has gotten so big because of, the rise of technology in our lives. So I think like the intersection that you explored in the presentation between sports and data, like two exciting fields, is really unique and it's something that's really cool to get into. Again, thank you so much, Aditya, for
Mhm.
taking time out of your schedule to talk about this. And if everyone could please give Aditya a virtual round of applause, that would be awesome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Definitely, if anybody has any extra questions, feel free. I'm on LinkedIn. If you just look up my name, feel free to connect. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out.
Yeah.